Hello students, I extend a very hearty welcome to all of you to EPG Pathshala. Myself Professor Sampath Kumar Swai, teaching as a professor at the Department of Tourism Management in Indira Gandhi National Tribal University, Amarkantak, Madhya Pradesh. Today, we will be talking and discussing about a very relevant topic, that is various stakeholders in tourism and hospitality development. After completing this module, students will be able to understand who are stakeholders, understand stakeholder theory and tourism, understand meaning of stakeholder participation, know the key elements of stakeholders involvement and their outcomes. Able to identify various stakeholders in tourism and hospitality development. In stakeholder introduction, the 21st century is one of managing for stakeholders. The task of executives is to create as much value as possible for stakeholders without resorting to trade-offs. Great companies endure because they manage to get stakeholder interest aligned in the same direction. Edward Freeman. A stakeholder can be defined as any group or individual who can affect or is affected by the achievement of an organization's objectives. Freeman, 1984, page 46. This definition draws in almost everybody that is or may be potentially involved in the life of an organization. It consequently goes without saying that not all stakeholders are equal in their influence on an organization's objectives. The stakeholder concept, as advocated by Freeman 1984, Donaldson, Preston 1985, Campbell 1997, argue that organizations like individual people are characterized by their relationship with the various groups and individuals such as employees and customers. A group or individual qualifies as a stakeholder if he or she has a legitimate interest in the organization's activities, thus has the power to affect the firm's performance and has a stake in the firm's performance. The implications of the proposition are far-reaching. In essence, stakeholder theory argues that shareholders are neither the sole owners of a business nor the sole beneficiaries of the activities, whilst shareholders are undeniably one stakeholder group. They are far from being the only group who expect to benefit from business activity, and accordingly are just one of these groups who have a legitimate right to influence a company's strategic objectives. Some of these groups are internal to the organization, whilst others are external. Internal stakeholders, board of directors, employees, collectively individual employees, that is founding entrepreneur, suppliers, existing and potential employees, representatives like trade union, trade associations, etc., functional business areas like marketing, finance, geographical areas of the organization like Europe, Asia, etc. External stakeholders, shareholders, creditors, existing and potential suppliers, existing and potential customers, existing and potential trade bodies like IATO, TAI, FSRI, pressure groups, environmental competitors, current and future national and international, government, legal, fiscal and regulatory impacts, private, individual or international regulatory bodies, IATA, ICAO, UNWTO, the local community. Tourism stakeholders, it can be defined as persons or groups who can affect and be affected by the tourism business within a particular market or community and who have interest in the planning process, delivery, outcomes of the tourism business. The examples of tourism stakeholders are government tourism authorities, local tourism agencies, non-government organizations, NGOs, local community, tourism related associations, tourism planning and development, companies, business people, tourism professionals, researchers, tourism related skill trainers. Mendilo 1991 proposed a widely used and competing model for understanding how stakeholders exert influence on an organization's objectives. According to this model, stakeholders can be ranked depending upon two variables, interest and power. Stakeholder power refers to the ability to influence the organization. Stakeholder interest refers to the willingness to influence the organization. In other words, interest is concerned the extent to which the stakeholder cares about what the organization does. It then follows that stakeholder influence is equal to power multiplied by interest. The actual influence that a stakeholder has will depend upon where the stakeholder is positioned with respect to ability to influence and willingness to influence. A stakeholder with both high power and high interest will be more influential than one with low power and low interest. The managing director and the board of directors are examples of stakeholders with both the high power and high interest. This is because they manage the business, depend upon it for their jobs and their positions within the organization, give them power with which to implement their decisions. The local community in most cases will not concern itself with the setting of organizational objectives and have limited power to impose their views. Stakeholder theory and tourism. The concept of stakeholder can be traced back to the 1960s when the Stanford Research Institute first proposed that a firm should be responsible not only to its stakeholders but also to its stakeholders whose support was considered critical for the existence of the firm. Stoney and Winstanley 2001. However, the term stakeholder has commonly been used since 1980s when Freeman wrote Strategic Management, a Stakeholder Approach. Freeman 1984 stated that an organization can be characterized by its relationship with the organization's stakeholders. Freeman defined a stakeholder as any group or individual who can affect or is affected by the achievement of the organization's objectives. Stakeholders are the actors with an interest in a common problem or issue, include all individuals, groups, organizations directly influenced by the actions others take to solve a problem. Further, Donaldson and Preston 1995 refined Freeman's definition, stating that to be identified as stakeholder, the group or individual must have a legitimate interest in the organization. 20 years later, Freeman 2004 has redefined the definition of stakeholder in a modified form. Those groups who are vital to the survival and success of the organization. Therefore, stakeholder is any individual or identifiable group affected by or that can affect the achievement of given objectives. Stakeholder theory is a view of capitalism that stresses the interconnected relationship between a business and its customers, suppliers, employees, investors, communities and others who have a stake in the organization. The theory argues that a firm should create value for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. Stakeholder theory aims to redefine an organization as a stakeholder's interest, coordinating and optimizing entity. Following this conceptualization, two competing models of the firm are following: input-out model of the firm, stakeholder model of the firm. Input-output model of the firm. Input-output model of the firm exemplifies that a firm is concerned with only with maximizing the difference between input and output, and that is the long run receives normal or market competitive benefits. Applying a stakeholder's conception of organization as opposed to the more traditional input-output perspective implies adhering to a belief where all actors are involved with an organization in order to obtain benefits. This differs from the input-output model that illustrates how certain factors contribute input which the black box of an organization converts to benefits for its customers. Donaldson and Peterson, Princeton, 1995. Stakeholder model of the firm. This model demonstrates a series of bilateral relationships in which the input and output of the firm are not limited to participants in the production cells processes, but are extended to whoever has a legitimate interest in the activities of the firm. Phillips, 2003. Since Freeman's first work on stakeholder theory, this model has been incorporated into business. Donaldson and Princeton, 1995, reviewed many of the studies reported in the management literature about stakeholder theory. They developed three aspects to the stakeholder theory: the descriptive empirical aspect of stakeholder theory. The theory describes some characteristics and behavior of an organization. This aspect is also used to examine and explain the past and present future state of affairs of an organization and its stakeholders. Based on the descriptive or empirical aspect, stakeholder theory can describe the multiple elements of tourism in a community, the history of tourism development in the community, the procedures and policies that relate to the development and management of tourism in the area, the types of attractions in the community, the overall economic impact to the community, the size of the tourism industry in the community, and the connections between the different agencies and organizations that are involved in tourism. The instrumental aspect of stakeholder theory, this identifies the connections or lack of connections between stakeholder management and the achievement of the organization or development's objectives and goals. The instrumental aspect establishes connections between specific actions and specific end results. For example, if a hotel is built in a community, then the hotel room inventory would increase in the community. This increase then can be related to changes to occupancy rate in the community, revenue generated and occupancy tax collected. Using the same example of a hotel that is built in the community, the occupancy rates could increase, stay the same or decrease because of the added hotel rooms to the inventory, while the occupancy tax collected increased. The normative aspect of stakeholder theory. This is the fundamental core of the stakeholder theory. The normative aspect of stakeholder theory used to interpret the functions of the corporation, including the identification of moral or philosophical guidelines for the operation and management of corporations. From the perspective of the normative aspect, the reasoning behind an organization participating in an activity is because it is the right thing to do. Identification of a stakeholder from this aspect is based on the stakeholder's interest in the organization, not the organization's interest in the stakeholder. The normative aspect assumes that all stakeholders have the right to be treated as an end, not as a means to an end. Based on this assumption, all stakeholders need to participate in determining the direction of the organization in which they have a stake. These categories have been used by scholars to describe how they view stakeholder theory and how they think stakeholder theory can contribute. Therefore, the three aspects of stakeholder theory indicate the need to identify the interest of all stakeholders. All stakeholders do not need to be involved equally in the decision making process, but it does require that all interests are identified and understood. Donaldson and Princeton, 1995. Failure to identify the interest of even a single primary stakeholder group may result in the failure of the process. Clarkson, 1995. The concept of the stakeholder is widely accepted in tourism policy making and planning because tourism development is a complex and dynamic process. A new approach to solving these problems has been pursued, and it is suggested that all stakeholders interested in or affected by tourism activities within a particular market or community should collectively manage tourism system. Inskip, 1991. Tourism planners should have a full appreciation of all the stakeholders who have interests in the planning, process, delivery and outcomes of tourism services. Stakeholders' insight and perspectives are critical success factors for tourism development. A perspective of stakeholder in tourism development is fundamental, which enforces his attitude toward the development. Incorporating stakeholder insight and perspectives can advance the collective wisdom among the stakeholders. Applying the stakeholder theory concepts to tourism would require tourism planners to realize and be concerned with the perspectives of diverse stakeholder groups involved in the tourism system. Stakeholder theory has been applied in tourism planning and development as a strategic tool. Stakeholders' knowledge and experience in tourism management, participation in tourism planning and development processes, and long-term community involvement have played important role in tourism management. Stakeholder participation. Stakeholder theory plays an important role in policy development. The application of this theory can be found in the early ideas of community participation and public involvement. Community participation and public involvement are central point in democratic belief that citizens should decide for themselves how government and their community should operate. Democracy is a political ideal that applies principally to the arrangements for making binding collective decisions. Such arrangements are democratic if they ensure that the authorization to exercise public power arises from collective decisions by the citizens over whom that power is exercised. Stakeholder participation is an effort to bring a representative group of the public in dialogue, government authorities, so that the government get the reactions of the public themselves on a particular subject. Based on these ideals, stakeholder involvement should begin with identifying a diverse group of people in the community and informing them about the issues and topics in particular. Stakeholder identification and involvement is the main step towards achieving community partnership and collaboration within tourism. Stakeholder participation can be implemented in different forms, both informal and formal. Forms of participation include advisory committees, focus groups, public deliberation, collaboration, civic review boards, citizen review panels, work groups, implementation studies, written comment, public hearings, etc. All forms, however, do not incorporate the same level of participation in order to better understand citizen participation. Ernst 1969 developed a typology of citizen participation. This typology divides participation into three categories: non-participation, degrees of tokenism, degrees of citizen power. Non-participation. This initiative is a form of public participation. The purpose of this type of participation is for planners to explain their independent decisions to the stakeholders who had no input. Degrees of tokenism. This is a form of participation that stakeholders are allowed to voice their interest but have no power to influence the decisions that were being made. Degrees of citizen power. This involves giving the stakeholders the ability not only to voice their interest but also to influence directly the decisions being made. Key elements of stakeholders involvement. Fairness. It incorporates the idea that all of the stakeholders' interests were taken into account during the decision making process. Efficiency. It incorporates idea that the success of a developmental process depending upon efficiency of stakeholders group. Even if all stakeholders group perceive the development process as fair, the development process will not be successful unless it is also efficient. Knowledge. Stakeholders may require specific domain related knowledge that is to be addressed in the decision making process. Once everyone in the process has the same level of knowledge, decision can be made that utilizes the collective wisdom of all the stakeholders. Wisdom. In the context of stakeholder involvement process, wisdom is described as the use of information to predict what will happen in the future. Information needs to be viewed objectively and decisions need to be based on the information. Stability. It means how long the decision or development can sustain. Once a decision or plan is developed, it should have stability and have stipulation for renegotiation. Key outcomes of stakeholders involvement. Stakeholder involvement includes the promotion of shared responsibility, reduction in conflict, increase in trust between all parties, the quality and legitimacy of the decisions are improved, public values and opinions are incorporated in the decision making process, the public is informed and educated about the topics and issues, new ideas are generated. The Tourism Stakeholder Map. The Tourism Stakeholder Map of Sauter and Lessin 1999 showed the whole range of potential stakeholders: local, business, residents, activist groups, tourists, national business chains, competitors, governments, employees, etc., who might be involved in tourism development. The degrees and types of stakeholders involvement vary. Some stakeholders are more involved in and more directly influenced by tourism development than others. Therefore, the Tourism Stakeholder Map features the key stakeholders, although the types of key stakeholders may differ according to the situation. It is likely that they include the stakeholders situated in the center of tourism development in the host community. Various stakeholders in tourism and hospital development. According to UNWTO, the term stakeholders in tourism development include the following players: national governments, local governments with a specific competency in tourism matters, tourism establishments and tourism enterprises, including their associations, institutions engaged in financing tourism projects, tourism employees, tourism professionals and tourism consultants, trade unions of tourism employees, tourism education and training centers, travelers including business travelers, visitors to tourism destinations, sites and attractions, local populations and host communities at tourism destinations through their representatives, other judicial and natural persons having stakes in tourism development, including non-governmental organizations specializing in tourism and directly involved in tourism projects and the supply of tourism services. Tourism destination stakeholder. There are many public and private sector stakeholders who are engaged in fulfilling the functions of destination management. National and regional or provincial government, economic development agencies, local authorities, government, town center management organizations, national park authorities, transport providers, attractions, events and cultural organizations, accommodation providers, restaurant, leisure and retail operators, intermediaries, for example, tour operators and conference organizers, destination representation agencies, media, local tourism consortia and partnership, business support agencies, skill development organizations. Summary: tourists view tourism destination as one whole composed of different elements like a puzzle comprised of different pieces. Tourism destination includes different places and attractions within a certain geographical area which is understood by its visitors as a unique entity. Many different products contribute to successful tourism experience. tourism has a wide range of impacts on different stakeholders which need to be effectively managed. Due to extremely competitive tourism market, tourism destinations are accepting stakeholder approach as a path to overcome the competition. By working together, stakeholders are better able to solve problems and take uniform decisions. With this, I conclude my presentation with my sincere thanks to all of you.